some of the parts of our DNA that are the most shut down by our negative reptilian overlords for the most part. Like, just to call a spade a spade.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you, Alandra, for the time and sharing information, and I want to say sharing energy. I've been working on this project since 2011. I've been trying to document the shifting of consciousness. I've taken many trips to many different places that I've been pulled to go, from some outside force in the beginning in 2011. When I started, I called them illuminated beings. Wasn't sure what they were, uh, but they really spoke to me. And so as I've gone through this process, I've also encountered Pleiadian beings that talk to me equally as much, and a number of other entities that I don't necessarily have words for, but I have descriptions for them. And then as I talk to people, I find that they have very similar descriptions. I want to talk to you about so many different things. I don't even know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought perhaps maybe you could just start with your name and who you are, and then wherever you want to jump off from what I just mentioned.
Oh, yes. Thanks for having me. I am Alandra Markman. I am a human. That's my primary credential. Takes quite a lot to incarnate as human these days in these kind of circumstances. So that's my claim to fame, is my humanity. But yeah, in terms of like activities and pursuits, I'm a poet and a channeler for a lot of interdimensional energies, meditation guide, energy worker person, musician, also play piano mostly. Yeah, those are things that are general introduction to my
Mhm.
being.
Would you say that your channeling and your music and all of that, has that spanned your whole lifetime, or when did that start?
Oh yeah, quite a few lifetimes. Yeah, I've been involved with like writing, knowledge, music, meditation, dance, expression, like just sort of globally, for most of my incarnations, which have been, oh yeah, I guess I should say, I'm a very old soul on the earth. I've been incarnating on earth since before this earth even existed, because this is one of many earths. So I've been with this whole earth project from the very beginning of the beginning, when it was a literally different planet, but same intention, same sort of project. So I've had a lot of human incarnations and related incarnations on this planet and earlier versions of it. So yeah, I guess that's really what I should say. Yeah, I'm an earth mage, like, so I work with earth energy. Pretty much everything I do is channeling earth energy in some way.
I remember I spent about 6 months on the Pacific Ocean, like living as close to the edge of the ocean as I could. I walked on the beach every single day. And after about a month or so, I had this like spontaneous feeling one day where I connected to the earth. And it was spontaneous. As the wind was hitting my face, this tear came out of my eye and I tasted it in my mouth, and it was salty, just like the edge of the ocean that I was standing at. And I was like, oh my God, we're all connected. Like it was a really powerful moment for me. Since then, at least for this incarnation for me, is when I started remembering. Can you tell
Ooh.
me about remembering?
Oh yeah, with a capital R. Well, uh, hmm. In this lifetime, I've had some unique opportunities for remembering, because I was raised in really extreme ways, enslaved by satanic cult participants and parts of the military and shadow government. So I was raised in very radically anti-human ways, involving a lot of torture, which I wouldn't wish on anybody. But it did one of the effects of that was raising my consciousness of my spiritual body very early. Yeah, even before I came into this incarnation, there were energetic manipulations being done to alter my life stream. And so even before I came in, I was coming in with, let's say, more determination than usual. I've had a lot of incarnations, and usually I forget most of the cosmic stuff, like we mostly do. But yeah, in this particular one, it was a fight for my survival from even before I inhabited the body at all. So it really heightened it upped my game, I'll say. Yeah. So yeah.
It upped the ante, like
Yeah.
you knew, like you were pre-bracing for what you were encountering.
Yeah, this has been very uniquely difficult. So yeah, and I was raised also not just by humans in this cult, but also by ETs, mostly negative ones. So I had like literal physical 3D aliens in my life from the time I had my first memory. So, so my reality was pretty expanded just relative to what most people experience. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think ETs came into my consciousness until I was taken on board a ship. And that's my earliest memory. Kind of rocked my world. It was so against what I thought I had known or learned. And then as I dive into it more and more, I feel like it actually brought me back to where I originated from.
Yeah, totally. This is all about remembering, as you say, and bringing us back to our roots and our Pleiadian and Syrian ancestors. Like, yeah, very much about that.
So the secret space program, that is something that I've heard a number of people mention. I know that it's real, but we know most media doesn't acknowledge it. What can you tell me about it and your experience with it?
Yeah. Well, secret space programs, plural, is a good place to start.
Okay.
Because they are quite numerous. So the governments of the world are mostly controlled by shadowy interests. The cabal, they're usually called Illuminati, Satanists, Luciferians. There are various names and sects and factions. But essentially, the technology that our governments hold is way, way, way beyond what we have access to as civilians by hundreds and hundreds of years. So there are space programs that are advanced very far beyond what we know about publicly, like NASA or the European Space Program or whatever what we hear about in the news. Yeah, this has been going on for quite a long time. I mean, back to the beginning of our civilization. We were created in large part by a coalition of beings from across our galaxy and other galaxies. And the negative ones won control of the Earth, at least on a temporary basis, and imposed on human people very, very broad amnesia of their origins and their capabilities, and restricted very basic technologies from being accessed. So that goes back a long, long way. In terms of our current culture, usually what people are talking about with the secret space programs are the US government secret space programs that have been in full swing since at least the 30s or 40s, and back before that too. But in terms of like people in the US government having direct control over some of the technology, it goes back to, in my knowledge, around that time. So I guess, I mean, the very tip of the iceberg, obviously Area 51, with interacting with the Zeta Reticulans, the gray beings from the Zeta Reticulan star system. That's like the very tip of the iceberg. There are, in practical terms, there are underground facilities all around the US, especially, that are full of various humans and non-humans working together with levels of technology that we are familiar with from science fiction. And yeah, primarily guided by demonic forces to perpetrate mass mind control. it's very convoluted, but those are some, I guess, general themes.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like what how I understand it, I guess. It aligns, I guess, with the knowing that I have. Is there a space program that is not controlled by the negative entities and is more of a I want to use the word humanitarian or organization? Are there things like that?
Um, well, all over the galaxy, yes. I mean, normal humans like are like beyond Earth. Most humans have a lot more common sense, and they have space fleets that they're using in much more responsible ways. Just to say, like, that's the norm, like
Okay.
for humanity. On Earth specifically, like, well, most. I think to the best of my knowledge, everything that humans on the surface are involved with is controlled by negative forces. Like, as far as I know, there are humans within the Earth with separate civilizations, and they have much, much more positive values, and they have access to spacecraft and things like that. So sometimes when people have interactions with positive humans that are flying spaceships and stuff, well, there are a number of possibilities for that. One is that they're from the inner Earth, where we have benevolent, advanced human civilizations, people like you and me, but they're just living inside the Earth rather than on it. We also have time travelers. So we have humans from the future who are coming back to our time. And those are, perfectly normal Earth humans with benevolent humans with advanced technology. I keep hearing about, white hats and how like there's this like rebellion of good people within the secret space programs, but I personally have not seen any evidence of that. Like all of my experience has been like very, very negative. So I don't know. I'm keeping an open mind, but I think it's mostly, but I think it's mostly copium. I think it's like designed to like distract people. It's like, oh yeah, the problem's taken care of. I can relax and like, actually no, like we need your engagement, like it's like most of it's still pretty evil, like probably all of it.
So I have this like utopic kind of idea that there are humans on Earth that are here to do really positive things and to shift out of this darkness that we have. And I believe I'm part of that group. And it's just that it's not super organized in a tangible sort of way. I know that I come across people like this often, and not usually even in my own city, but in other parts of the world. I'll come across certain people, and a lot of them tend to be shaman or medicine people or some sort of deeply spiritual type of a person. And I wonder if from your knowledge, how can we all become more organized? Like, what's the...
I would love it. I mean, this is a question which occupies my consciousness on a regular basis.
It's the same.
Well, organizing that's based in spirituality, but not based in religion is really positive. Usually when the religious part comes in, people kind of give away their power and it becomes this other thing. Yeah, I mean, when people get together based on like shared spiritual values and they're able to live by that in some way, that can be really good. I mean, it does happen in religious communities sometimes, but I would like to see more non-religious spiritual communities working together. Yeah, I mean, any sort of spiritual undertaking, if you're going really deep with it, it brings you to truth, it brings you to integrity. If you're doing the actual spiritual work, that's the goal, that's what happens. So there are many, many pathways for that, and a lot of people doing a lot of spiritual work in all sorts of schools and approaches. I'm working to create a co-housing community, like here in Seattle. Like I'm pretty excited about that. I think that'll be a good thing. it's tricky because most of the time when people are very organized, the level of consciousness goes way down.
Yeah.
I would like it for the more conscious people to be more organized.
It's Earth's catch-22, where
Yeah.
I feel like, and that's where like the struggle is real. That is like, I feel like my biggest struggle is I know I have these really wonderful intentions and I connect with people, but then it's like, where do we kind of go from there? I guess maybe that's what just having a conversation is about.
Yeah. One of the things, indeed.
I was called to work with Sufon, which is interesting to me because that group of the Seattle UFO Network has been around, I guess, for 15 years. And just a couple of years ago, it entered my consciousness, and ever since I'm just really drawn to people with like similar ideas. And I know I was also called to have the open mics. And I think that the open mics are supposed to really cultivate a community feel. Building community is really important. It's just hard to do on a global scale. It shouldn't be hard to do. I mean, we're all still connected, but our technology seems a bit archaic at times.
A lot of it is, yeah. It's kind of that's something I also stress about on a daily basis. I'm like, I'm driving this vehicle powered by gasoline. Like, that's crazy. Like, that is so far in the past. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I was also going to say, just a side thing, like, I mean, anything that empowers people to do things to keep their power and not give their power away, like just little things like I bank at a credit union instead of a commercial bank, like, very simple things. I'm using a computer that runs on Linux right now, open source software, like stuff like that it inspires me. I mean, it's not like very flashy or impressive, but but it does slowly but surely give power to people.
Yeah, because I think what I think it helps do is align every part of, because technology is just as much a part of us as nature. And so we have to align fully with all of the things, not just our human bodies, but the technology we have access to, and the energies that exist on the earth in our specific like electromagnetic location. I recently went to Egypt and I visited the Dendera Temple. I visited lots of temples, but Dendera was for some reason struck something in me to the point where I've made videos and tried to share my experiences at all the other temples, but I can't do the Dendera one yet. And I don't know why. I there's something there and I don't know what it is that is like a block or something. And so I thought you had mentioned that you know a lot about Dendera, and I thought us having a conversation would help move me along in this process of understanding what Dendera is about.
Sure. Whew. Well, I just, right before this interview, I was guiding my Atlantean karma clearing group, guided meditation group. And yeah, I thought to focus on Dendera because I knew we'd be having this talk. So we just had this pretty moving, for me, meditation there, me and a couple other people. So yeah, I'm feeling very freshly energized to go there. I mean, one of the things that came through that I'm still resonating with, basically, is kind of Dendera and Alexandria as these twin flames of Egypt and high Egyptian culture, and also that basically everything about Egyptian culture is a recapitulation or a further development of Atlantean culture. So we were going back to the original Atlantean temples as well, and that was pretty fun. That was a very moving image for me, with the temple at Dendera kind of representing a feminine-led consciousness, a body-based approach to spirituality and wisdom, and just bringing that through really strongly. And then Alexandria, where the library was, being a more masculine-oriented, kind of intellectually oriented approach to wisdom building. And those two sites functioning together as one whole, as sort of matriarch and patriarch.
That definitely resonates with me. I think both of those energies were present, the Atlanteans below the water. And so, maybe even now, Atlantis is below the water and Dendera is above. When I arrived at Dendera, when I stepped onto the ground off the bus, that went through my head is not all reptilians are bad. And I thought, as I was walking up to it, I was like just looking around and I was like, that's a good thing to remember, because, it's like not all humans are bad, not all, it's not always one way. And I got the feeling that reptilians were a big part of building that temple.
For sure. Yeah. Andromedan reptilians, like we were kind of mentioning. We're a very, very strong presence there. I mean, a lot of the temple, well, when you get into body-based wisdom, like a lot of that is serpent power, activating Kundalini. Like it's very, I mean, reptilian humanoids are some of our strongest teachers, like to work with those energies. Because their bodies are very, very amplified in that way. Like they have really intense Kundalini energy. And so they just seemed like, and speaking also from the perspective of someone who like has been through the earth thing a whole bunch of times, they were pretty ideal teachers, like to create that kind of temple, just for that very simple reason. Definitely when I've gone there in meditation, like my sense of that Andromedan reptilian presence is very, very strong. And I have a very personal felt connection to that because I'm also hybridized a little bit with Saurians, who are another type of reptilian from Orion. And like my people in my close family have a lot of this Andromedan reptilian energy. So it's something very intimate. It's like family, is the feeling that I have with it.
I know as I left, what went through my head was thank you. I'm so grateful that I was able to experience this. But then I have this big disconnect of when I arrived and when I left, and like what happened in between then. I don't know. I'm just like,
ooh. Do you want to talk about that, or do you remember?
Well, yeah, that's what I've been trying to explore in my mind is like, I know that I went down into a chamber originally held oils. And only like the high priests would go down and use the oils that were there. I think these oils, and I brought many oils back with me. So I've been working with these Egyptian oils as I've been here. And I'm realizing that they're really powerful. They're very much awakening even more new things in me. And so I think something happened in that chamber. Something happened molecularly in my body as I was in there, that changed me or my mind or my consciousness. I don't know which one, maybe all of it.
That's lovely. And I've just had my kind of focus or awareness of Dendera kind of refreshed. I was typing poetry last weekend at the West Seattle Farmers Market, and somebody I was writing a poem for had also just come back from Egypt and had also just been to the temple. And I was like, what? What are the chances of that? And so that was a really cool moment. I was like, wait, and I'm doing this interview thing. And it's like, let me be with that a little bit. So, and that's kind of what came out of my meditation also, was like, it's a very relevant, there are a lot of obviously sacred heritage sites of the world, but this one feels particularly relevant for where we are right now, like to bring us into kind of out of this like body hatred and shame stuff, which goes really, really deep, and into just awareness of these vessels as like multidimensional initiation portals. Like, you know, that's really, these, like, all of our senses are carefully crafted to like bring a soul like exquisite experience. I mean, this is these vessels are designed for exquisite sensitivity, and that's a big part of the lesson of being human. And like most of us living in these sort of death worshiping cultures have kind of, you know, forgotten about that. So it's a very, yeah. And I love that it came to you in so physical a form. Like, here's a literal oil that you can anoint with. Like, oh yeah. For sure. I'm just remembering this oil that I received, this oil blend that I received from Michelle Mahler. Do you know her? Oh, Circle of Healing. She's up in Marysville.
Okay.
Or, oh no, maybe Mount Vernon, but she's in the area. She makes some really cool oils. It's like, oh yeah, just remembering that. Shout out to Michelle Mahler.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's good to have a local person, because I don't know when I will physically be back to Egypt again, and I'm sure my oils will run out soon.
So if you have words for it, like what does it do? What's going on when you use those?
Words are hard. So each one is different. Saqqara flower and Nile flower are the two that I've been using the most. And then another one that's really, really earthly. It's called musk. On a daily basis, I try to use the earthly ones, the musk. It brings me back into my body. But when I'm feeling not sure which way to go, the Saqqara flower has been very helpful to kind of guide me in a direction, if that makes sense. So I think the musk is more body-centered, body-centric, and the Saqqara is more mind, or I don't always like using the word mind. Brain, maybe brain function. Mind is only what we know of the mind, and our brain is the whole thing. And there's a lot more that we can probably do as humans with that whole brain that I'm always trying to learn. And another thing that keeps entering my mind in this, like, maybe I don't watch the news, but I do stay tuned into world happenings just through news sources that I choose to listen to. And Mars keeps coming up a lot. And when I was at Dendera, I saw another temple on Mars or in Mars or something that was the same. Or it's like when I was there, I almost felt like I went to Mars for a second and came back.
Yes.
And I just wonder if there's a connection there, because ever since I came back, I keep hearing how, you know, we're sending things to Mars, and, you know, and this is just normal media saying this. So Mars is kind of entering the global consciousness more now, I think, than it was before. So I'm just wondering if you have any insight into what that was that I tapped into.
Yes. As far as I'm concerned, that is literal fact. There are analogous temples on Mars. Like, that's real. That's okay. If you went to Mars in 3D, you would find some of the same structures. Yes.
Okay. Because I saw that. I saw it in my mind when I was there, and I was like walking around, and it's like I kept flashing. It sounds strange, but I kept being in Mars and then being back on Earth. And it's like I was in some sort of portal or.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that. Yeah. I mean, I was raised going back and forth to Mars, like literally. And there are portals of consciousness, and there are literal portals of bringing your whole body with you. And there's a little bit of gray area between the two. And I pretty much experienced all of those growing up. And yeah, I mean, Cydonia, the Sidonian ruins on Mars, like, are very much, I mean, they were designed by the same group of people and other beings that created the architecture of Egypt. Yeah, same creators, very similar purposes. Yeah, and I can say that I have been to those physically. So although never like in a way where I was actually free to look around and make my own discoveries.
Right.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's different being somewhere and also having free will, and then just being somewhere because you're brought there or supposed to be there.
Yeah. And I had to keep a lot of my consciousness outside of my body growing up because just what I needed to do to survive. So like if I had my full presence and my full integrity, I'd like to go back and like, experience it as a free person. Yeah, that would be really good.
I think in this human lifetime, it might be possible even on like a, I don't know. I get the feeling that we're going to accelerate really fast soon towards higher levels of consciousness on a like global scale. At least that's my utopic dream that I talk about.
That's good to hear.
I feel like it's people nowadays, like not when those temples were built, but people now on Mars live inside of Mars. Is that correct?
Generally, I mean, yeah, the surface is, there are some people on the surface, but most of the settlements are underground. Yeah.
Are underground. Okay. And then this jumps me to Venus for some other, I don't know why, but I see everything on Venus as being on the surface like Earth. Is that, do you know anything about Venus?
Generally, well, it depends. So in the past, before Venus became the way it is with the atmosphere the way it is, it had a more Earth-like climate. And so we had people living in very similar physical conditions to the way we live for a very long time on Venus. Obviously, the atmosphere has shifted dramatically on this level, on the 3D level. If you're tuning in on other levels, it's still possible to experience that, whether through accessing it, from the vantage point of the past or from the vantage point of other dimensions. So yeah, I mean, to me, that's a very valid experience. I particularly connect, like my Venusian kind of tribe that I connect to the most are these amphibian humanoids that I really enjoy. And I've had an incarnation, well, a couple incarnations there, basically as this kind of, for lack of more graceful words, a frog person. Yeah.
I feel like I saw an image of a frog person at Dendera. I came across something recently that says it takes 21 days to rewrite our DNA. And I have had this intuition that we can definitely alter our DNA with our minds. And I thought, maybe that is true. Like maybe we can do things that unlock or reconnect or do something with our DNA.
Yeah, rewriting, that resonates with me, at least in terms of getting to some of the surface layers. You can definitely do that in a matter of weeks. Yeah. Of course, as I kind of just implied, it's a very layered thing. So there are deeper layers of the DNA that require much more time and energy to activate. Some of the parts of our DNA that are the most shut down by our negative reptilian overlords for the most part, like just to call a spade. Some of those parts they take a lot longer to wake up and to activate, and to some extent that's the entire ascension process right there, is just like waking up the dormant DNA.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like stages of like or layers of an onion or something, like peeling off, like, and some of them are like more dense than others, and some are move through easier. It's
for
definitely
sure. I mean, a lot of people now talk about how 12 is the normal number of DNA strands. Like having 2 strands is not normal. That's not the actual human design. Like,
right.
No, like 12 is the normal.
Yeah. One of the things I laugh about the most, or there's many things I laugh about that the media says, but one is junk DNA. Always like, it's like,
Yeah.
What like moron came up with that idea? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's a pretty kooky phrase. Yeah.
It is. There's more too. It's just one that like every time I hear it, I'm like, yeah, there's so much to say. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. No, I mean, DNA is like about as raw a manifestation as you can get in terms of intention manifesting physically. It's like very directly close to the source of all manifestation. Like DNA does not exist without being extremely intentional. That's part of its nature, right?
Yeah.
So to call DNA, like to call like the most conscious thing in our creation, like unconscious or junk is like what? Like,
It,
yeah,
yeah, it's self-deprecating. Like
yeah.
it's like just beating you down, like well, that's what I feel like the media does, is tries to make you small.
Yeah, and everything's backwards. Like,
Yeah.
like the things that are the most inert and have the least consciousness, it's like, oh, those are so advanced and really conscious. And then the things that have the most consciousness, we're told have no consciousness. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like,
Totally. It's completely backwards. There are times when I go through my day and I was like, this is completely backwards of how it should be. Like it's really it blows my mind. And yet I am still like trying my hardest to overcome it.
In relation to what you were saying a few beats ago, I just wanted to mention that, yeah, Venus is also a place where we can bilocate quite easily, and where we have a tremendous amount of heritage for our Earth humanity. So yeah, I mean, we've been spread across the solar system, but especially on Mars, Venus, and Maldek, the planet, which is now the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter.
Okay.
That was formerly another planet, the fifth planet in our system. And Mars, Earth, Venus, and Maldek all had substantial human populations like we have on Earth. So yeah.
In the belt that you're talking about, are there floating cities, or maybe there are ships that are cities? I just see a lot of activity there.
There's a tremendous amount of activity in ships, yes. Yep.
Cool. I like asking you these questions because I can't ask this to anyone else, and I have all these like ideas in my head, and I'm like,
I mean, so a lot of sometimes I feel like most of what I do is just say, that's real. You're not crazy. Yes, that is true. Like, which is helpful.
it is helpful. It's nice to hear it, because everything else is working against that, so it's like,
yeah, fair point.
Like sometimes it's nice to be able to like, yeah, just have like a real conversation. It's really refreshing.
For real. Yeah. Yes, everybody, let's be very kind to each other's intuitions and felt experiences. Let's validate them as much as possible. This is part of our new culture. It's one of our cornerstone values of like the values that we're coming into, that we're growing away from just like shutting everything down in the name of like false intellectual wisdom, right? Like coming into actual embrace of like bodily knowledge and feminine intuitive knowledge and stuff like that. So yeah,
I think you just laid the groundwork for what we're supposed to do. Like that's
good.
what you just did. Like so, because see, it's amazing what vibrations can do and like conversation can do, because like when I think I first asked the question, what should humanity do, like it's a big question, but then it takes us to start like going through other doors and other ways, and then the answers just sort of come along the path. Yeah, things are shifting, like literally shifting as we're speaking.
Yeah, it's partly like what we always talk about as spiritually minded people, and then it's partly like, oh yeah, that's some literal movement.
Yeah. Another thing that that I wrote down is that we should be conscious of the media that we absorb just as much as the food and anything else, because that information is also doing something to us, whether we know it or not.
Yeah, that's true. I've barely connected to any of the other like secret space programs survivors who are like have shows and blogs and articles and stuff. Like I've barely connected to any of that, partly because probably I haven't been ready, like it's too traumatic or something, but not or something, that's what it is. But lately I'm like, oh, it would be really good for me to like tune into those channels and find a little more community, and not like always be the only survivor around, and because like there are people who are doing really good work. Yeah, like I'm thinking about just some people who have channels, and like, oh, there's like conferences, there's like Contact in the Desert UFO conference. I'm like,
Yep.
oh yeah, like I could pretty easily enter this culture a little bit more, like take in a little bit more of that kind of media, and it would probably be good for me just to like sometimes I have like a crotchety attitude. I'm like, that's all old hat for me, blah blah blah. but it's not necessarily all about just knowing stuff. It's about like meeting people and like just being in a field. It's like, oh yeah, like I mean, even going to the Sufan event recently was like first time in a while that I'd even been around like people with a coherent interest in like ETs and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, there's something about that. It opens up more possibilities, even if people's consciousness is all over the place, but it opens up space that would not otherwise be there. Like when we make our own media like this, like we're doing right now, like it definitely enlarges what's possible in our thoughts. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's part of the mission that I've been given, is to tell stories and to connect. I believe that this shift that we're going through, and even you doing this video with me, is part of a movement. And that movement is to make these conversations more conscious, like to have conscious conversations. It is sometimes scary to actually put yourself out there in a way on like platforms like YouTube and different things. Because I know for a long time I would like write my extraterrestrial stories and my onboard experiences just in my journal, and I would like be like, I hope no one ever sees this, and like just be really like protective of it, and but there's definitely something that's shifted where now I'm like, I don't even care if someone thinks I'm crazy. I just want to do what my heart is pulled to do. And so having conversations like this is just like, it makes me feel electric and calm at the same time. And I don't know what the heck that is.
Yeah. Electric and magnetic at the same time.
I mean, it's a really wonderful feeling. Like it's like, that's what being alive is about to me. Like that's the most, present of mind that I can be in. And then I know I'm in the right place,
I'm so glad to hear all that.
I know. This is pretty cool. I think what happens is we put our conversation out there, our conscious conversation out there, and then we see what happens.
Yeah, I feel pretty easy about it, because obviously like we've encountered each other like primarily on a social level first. So it just gives me a really easy feeling, like it doesn't, I'm not like attached to this being really anything. So
right. It's true. Well, and I realize, like, as I'm like scripting my life of like how I want my life to be, I'm like, I have full control of like asking who I want to be in my life, like, and like, if that is beneficial to the whole, then things are easy.
Yeah.
So
that's true. Wavy gravy.
Yeah. Because we are water. To get back to like the most fundamental thing, I guess.
Premise
Gosh.
one, we are water.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll be in touch.
You're welcome.
And we'll just see where everything, what all is coming up.
We shall.
I think it's all good things.
Yeah. Me too.
All right. Peace.
Okay. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.